Thank you. Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I figured this is going to be a light crowd because I walked by Robert Irvine. And although Katie, you got to be on stage with him, right? Yeah. Great. So what I want to talk about today is we've seen a lot of wage pressure in Seattle specifically. So we're seeing the larger companies right now at $13 and within a year at $15. And if you're a server and you get no tip credit, that creates quite a problem. What also goes along with that is the wage inflation that you owe to the kitchen. So what's going on in the market is not necessarily great news either. So we're seeing a real tightening of people entering the job force compared to the amount of jobs being offered. So you see that blue line. Blue line is all the jobs that are coming online. The red line are all the people that are entering the job market. You see a disconnect? So there's an awful lot of people. We're still at anywhere from 3 to 5% unemployment, depending on where you live. But we're seeing a lot of people just not entering the job market. So they're going more and more for education, higher education, continuing on. So we have to be able to make more with less. There's no way that we can continue to maintain the labor market the way that we do. So what are employees looking for today? They're really looking for three things. Looking for fairness, they're looking for stretch, and they're looking for community. And the part of stretch is they love people. The new workforce loves a steep learning curve. I don't know about you, but I wasn't thrilled about a steep learning curve. But the new people love a steep learning curve. So if you give me your card after this, I'll send you the PDFs of this too, so you don't have to take a whole bunch of notes if you're scrambling for points. So nowadays, people want to do a great job, that's for sure. And so they want to be challenged, and the last thing they want is they want community. So there's really 4 areas that we have to manage much differently than we ever have in the past. So knowledge, focus, precision, and speed. Those 4 areas, those behaviors we have to manage like we've never managed before. Why is that? Because we need to get better results than we've ever gotten in the past. We've been kind of slack as an industry over the decades that we haven't necessarily required that productivity go up. So ask yourself the question, when you hired somebody to do prep work 10 years ago, same person's still there, hired them for 8 hours. 10 years later, how much do they work? 8 hours. So for some reason, we never required them to get better. We just accepted what they gave us. Hey, Tom. Good. So we want to focus on these 4 areas. So first place is in knowledge. So understanding why. So we do a great job when we talk to people about how to do something and what to do. But we do a very poor job of explaining why. Why is why important? Why is important? Because it can be retained a lot longer. People hang on to stuff. It can be built upon. It gives a lot of versatility, and then you can create. It facilitates creativity. So you're allowed to basically, once you're a master of something, you understand why, you can have a lot better impact than you've ever had in the past. So we want to teach our people why to do something. In fact, I heard this morning from one of our own people. It'd be nice to know why that I'm supposed to do this stuff, not just how to do it or what to do, but why am I doing this? Because if I understand why, I can actually remember. So people never forget what they understand. Have you ever been challenged when you got up, although Nike seems there is a big challenge here, have you ever been challenged on tying your shoes? Not much of a challenge since past kindergarten. So we don't forget what we understand, but we can forget what we know. So we want to make sure that we're really teaching people why they do things. And once they understand why they're doing it, they can begin to get better, build speed, and we'll see the direction going that we want to as far as productivity. So the killer in any business cycle is the same or worse productivity and a higher cost, right? Those are the opposite direction that we want to go. We want higher productivity and lower cost. And that's a cycle where we get economies of scale. The other cycle won't work long term. Eventually we'll run out of money. And we deal with this all the time when people run out of money. So we want to make sure that we check for understanding with people, that the knowledge that they have, they understand why. And they're not trained when they're trained. Do you have a training, anybody in here, do you have a training program in your company? Does the training stop after? It keeps going. So we want to make sure that that continues on, because a lot of times what I see in businesses is people think that they're trained when they're trained. They provide training, then they stop. And then we just expect that people are incrementally going to get better. And that's a fine way to do it, but we don't get the best out of people when we do that kind of thing. So number 2 is we want to increase the focus. So why can a lion tamer actually survive when they walk into a cage? You ever wonder that? You ever seen the size of a lion? 800-900 pounds? 10 times faster than a human being? Yet a guy walks into a cage with what? A whip and a chair. Now, do you think an 800 or 900 pound killing machine is going to be stopped by the whip and the chair? Or do you think they're just naturally tamed? If they're starving, they really don't care if you're friends with them or not. So the whip is for show. It does nothing. But the chair is the tool. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the chair is the tool? Because the lion tamer holds up the chair, and what's the lion do? Oh, wow. I never seen anything like that before. Whoa, wow, whoa. And the lion gets disoriented. And what happens to the lion? It's ineffective. It loses its way. It doesn't remember how to behave anymore as a lion. So it gets very docile, very tame. And this has been around for about 80 years because there were a lot of lion tamers before this guy realized that the chair worked that are no longer with us. They learned the hard way. This guy walks in with a chair, all of a sudden he's a superhero. He's the lion tamer, right? And the second thing is, have you ever noticed when you pull up to a spot to parallel park, what's one of the first things you do? Turn down the radio. You go by an accident, a place where an accident is, what do? Turn down the radio. Why? Do you need your ears to park? Do you need your ears to see what's going on? It's because it's physically impossible for us to split our focus. We think that we can split our focus and we can't. We have to be beyond, we have to get to this point where things are automatic to us. So the 2 parts of our brain. The frontal part that is basically, that holds temporary memory, and it's very taxing on us. It's why you start a new job or you do something new, at the end of the day you're really tired. That's because this part of your brain's working really, really hard. But if you get really good at it, it takes all that information and eventually shoves it back. It has to do it incrementally, and then it goes into long-term memory, right? I remember how to tie my shoes. I'll guarantee you, I haven't tied a hook on with a fishing line for 40 years, shamefully, 40 years. But I'll guarantee you, all of those times I sat in my bedroom and I tied hooks when I was a kid, I can still tie a hook just like that. No problem. Because I understand how to do it. I know how to twist it, I know how to pull it through, I know how to make sure that it's nice and tight and clip clean and ready to go. Because I understand. So that part of it's moved back. That's no longer what's chewing things up in my brain. I got a lot of other things that chew up my brain, but that's not one of them. So we have to be very careful when we focus. And when we start a new job, we start our people, they go through this process. So they come in and they're basically naive. Have you noticed that? You hire somebody, and then when they come to work for you, they expect that they're picking up where they left off. So they all of a sudden think, well, geez, I got this. And they interviewed really well, and you hired them, and they come in on day one, what happened? Wow, this person might actually be a dud. Because they start off, they think they know something, they actually don't know anything. So being a server in one restaurant is much different than being a server in another restaurant. You go fast food restaurant to fast food restaurant, It's relatively the same, but if you change POS systems, we watched this the other day at Starbucks. Person that works at one that we normally go through is working at another. I'm like, the line's out the door. Yeah, you know, this POS system's different. Same system, everything around it, just to change the load on it. She thought she had it, but then she realizes, uh-oh, now I'm in trouble. So we start off in this spot where we actually don't know we don't know. Then we move to the next level, and we get kind of this beginner's mind. Then we become conscious. We actually don't know. And then what happens to us? We get really scared when we figure out we don't know. And when we get really scared, that fires a whole bunch of stuff into our system called adrenaline that isn't good for us. It blocks the way we think. It takes away our creativity. We become robotic. We're broken down to the fight or flight, and we want to run off. So we got to make sure that new people, when they start with us, we're in really good touch with them, because they're going to go through this no matter what. They're going to go through this. So they go from that point. Now I'm consciously, I know I'm incompetent. I'm not, I got to really hurry, and I got to figure this whole thing out, because I know that I'm consciously incompetent. So that then moves me along to the point of, okay, now I've figured it out. So now I'm consciously competent. Now I understand how to do my job. I know how to use the POS system. I know how to pour a drink. I know how to get from point A to point B. I'm not trying to learn everything. So all of a sudden I'm consciously competent. And then I move into unconsciously competent. So I'm so good, I don't even know I'm good. Anybody like to live there? You like to live in the front part, or you like to live on the back side? So we get so good we don't even know we're good, and that's what we want in our employees. They get so good at their basic job that they don't even know they're good at it, and then we tell them that they're really good at it, and once they know they're really good at it, then they get this whole thing of reflective competence. So they basically realize they're really good, and then they become good trainers at that point. It's everything's second nature to them. So our job as leaders is to get people into the flow. When we work, our job is to get people in the flow. So what's the best way to get somebody into the flow? Start there yourself. So us as leaders, we've got to be on it from the moment that we hit the front door. So we have to be in the flow. We can't be in our own way. We have to set ourselves up for success every day, so when we walk in, we can be the absolute best that we can be. Have you ever noticed, if you're not the best, when you walk in, what happens to your crew? About half of them suck right along with you. The other half don't suck because they're just not built that way. But at the end of the day, everybody fits into one of these four buckets. So you have to evaluate your staff. There's, on the left-hand side is about 15% of the staff. Those are actively engaged. Those are saboteurs. Those are the people that give you a half a day worth of work for a full day pay. Isn't that great? Anybody have one of those? This is math, ladies and gentlemen. 15%, if you have 20 people on staff, 15% of those, three people working on your staff, give you a half a day of productivity for a full day of work. Or a half a day of work for a full day of pay. You know what I'm saying? Have you seen those before? Have you looked at your staff and said, wow, some of these people actually kind of suck? Now, not just on the day, but they do all the time. So those are the saboteurs. The bad thing about the saboteurs is there's another bucket right next to them called the somewhat disengaged people. So the actively disengaged people, you know who they are. But that next bucket, those are people that I call the winnowing. They're sitting on the fence. They're kind of winnowing back and forth. They don't know. They'll go with the flow. Same with the ones on the other side of the other 35% on the other side of the line. So somewhat disengaged, somewhat engaged. The problem is the actively disengaged people are a lot stronger at recruiting than the actively engaged people are. So that second bucket, they'll give you about 2/3 of a day of work for a full day of pay. Great. At least I'm getting 6 hours for 8 hours worth of work. And we used to work with a guy, there's a couple of people that I used to work with here, named Lamont. Lamont was the greatest guy in the world. Lamont would work 12 hours a day. He got 8 hours worth of work done. That guy, but he was plugged in. He was on the other side. He's a great guy to have in the office, but he was a guy that he would literally, he enjoyed the social aspect of the job. So he'd spend a little bit more time to get it done. Isn't that right, Tom? Yeah, that's right. So the next spot, the somewhat engaged, they give you a full day of work for a full day of pay. And the last one, the actively engaged people, unfortunately, you've only got about 3 of those on a 20-person staff. Those give you a day and a half worth of work for 1 day of pay. Now, do you have any of those people? Yes? Yeah. We love those people, right? We take care of them. We make sure they get the best shifts, and everything in their life is streamlined and cool. So the problem with those actively disengaged people is they reach that bucket there for this actively disengaged people, and they start recruiting them left. Eventually those people get fired down at the bottom. The problem is they left a pool behind. So they pulled these people into this actively disengaged thing, and it's kind of refuels, because you go through and you get rid of the bad seeds, and what happens? 6 months later, you got more bad seeds, right? It's the way it is. Stuff happens in people's lives, things don't work out, and they get disengaged. So the good sign is if we can get people into the flow, they will drive engagement in the workforce, and that will drive customer behavior, passion, and loyalty. That makes sense? So we've got the saboteurs, we've got the slugs, we've got the solids, and we've got the stars. Take care of the stars, guard the solids, you recruit the slugs, and get rid of the saboteurs. So how do we maximize flow through engagement? So engagement really is the employee's willingness to freely give discretionary effort to their employer. So we will actually, those people actually give the rest. And this whole presentation is about getting that next level, because we're not there yet. And part of, when you think of what I'm talking about, it's hard to even think what kind of connects the dots here, because we're living in this spot that is really, we're in that unconsciously incompetent spot. So we're in that spot where we don't quite even understand how do we get the next level out of people, especially ourselves. So it's got to start with ourselves. So discretionary efforts, the difference in what people are capable of doing versus what they actually are willing to do. And our job as leaders is to get them to do what they're willing to do. Remember the first opening slides? The opening slide was basically about making sure that people are doing their best, that they're fulfilling what they're capable of. So it's our job as leaders to pull that out of them. All right, so how do we do that? We have to focus on strengths. If you focus on people's weaknesses, all you're going to get is a bunch of really strong, weak people. They're never going to be very good, to tell you the truth. So if you look at these statistics from Gallup, you basically see the first one. So a supervisor focuses on strengths or positive characteristics. 61% of the people are engaged at that point. Engaged means I'll give you that extra effort. I'm in gear, I'll give you that extra. If someone just focuses on my negative, I'll give 45% engagement. That's phenomenal, because the average is about 20%. So we get down to the bottom bucket. My supervisor ignores me. How much engagement do we get? 3%. So we get 3% engagement. 3% engagement if the supervisor ignores me. Now, let me ask you something. When you look at that chart, this one, who gets ignored most of the time? Who gets ignored most of the time? The guys over there, right? The solids and the stars, they're the ones that are ignored. And we spend 80% of our time on the left side dealing with problems, instead of 80% of our time on the right side building those people up. So we're really guilty of this, of just kind of walking by, right? Where we just kind of walk by people, we let the stars and we let the solids just kind of go about their business. They're okay. Anybody ever guilty of that, by the way? They're okay. It's all right. So don't worry about them. At least I don't have to worry about them. I got other problems. I got to take care of these other problems over there. So that is a very, very telling statistic. So we want to make sure that we are focusing on people's strengths and we are reinforcing those strengths, because look at the engagement side. And what happens when you have a really engaged workforce? What happens? Sales go flying through the roof. Why is that? Really engaged sales force creates what? Really engaged guest force. So your guests are engaged. And engaged guests spend at a 23% premium to a normal guest. A disengaged guest spends at a 13% discount. Does that line up? They spend, so these guys, the ones that are really engaged, are the ones that buy the extra glass of something or the extra dessert or something like that, right? And the people that are unhappy, what do? We're comping. We're comping stuff. So they have a 13% discount compared to a 23% premium. So having a really engaged workforce delivers the results that we want, because we are not going to be able to manage our way out of labor problems. Do you know that? You can't continue to just hire people. You have to get higher productivity per person. It's the only way we're going to make it, or we completely have to change the model, which some people have. But eventually we're going to bump into the backside of that model too. Wages are not going to go down. In Seattle, it's not a $15 an hour minimum wage, it's an $18 minimum wage. And the state has, I think, a $12 or $12.50 one that's being circulated right now. So if you're outside of Seattle and Tacoma and SeaTac and you think, hey, great, I don't have to deal with this, it's coming. The problem is it comes in dollar buckets. And if you look at a restaurant that does roughly for $1 million of sales, you're going to run a front of the house labor of about 10%, or at least you used to, which is about $100,000 of those at $10 an hour. 10,000 hours at $10 an hour. $10,000 out of your pocket for every $1 raise per million in revenue that you do. If you've got a $5 million company, it just cost you $50,000. First time you can raise prices, easy. Second time you can raise prices, easy. But it keeps going up. You're going to price yourself out of the market, because guess what? Somebody else figured it out. Somebody else figured out how to get better productivity out of their people, and they're operating faster than you are. We're going to talk about speed in a little bit. So the last piece under focus is to really offer intense ongoing training, and really to get the point where the associates' goals and the business's goals cross over, and we create this sweet point right here in the top where we get maximum contribution and maximum satisfaction. Employees are really happy, the business is making lots of money and rolling. And the only way to get there is to get people into the flow every day and coach them and train them like they've never been trained before. Problem is, we get older, we get tired, we don't want to coach like that anymore. Somebody else's problem. Well, somebody else works for us, so somebody else isn't fired up when they come to work. We have got to be fired up every day when we go to work. We don't get to take a day off, and neither do your managers. They have to be in gear every day, firing everybody up. There is no other way. High productivity comes out of people that are really in the flow and really going. Number 3, precision. So attention to detail drives sales, which solves a multitude of labor issues. So one of the guys, Bill Marvin, I saw Bill, I ran into him just a little while ago, and I'll never forget Bill saying, I've never gone to a restaurant with a labor problem, ever. But I've gone to a lot of restaurants with a sales problem. He never approaches it from labor management. He approaches it from sales. Your sales aren't high enough. So what happens if you have really engaged employees and really engaged guests, and all of a sudden you got a 23% sales increase because they spent at a premium? Same people spent at a premium. So technical excellence, precision, attention to detail drives sales, and it solves a multitude of labor issues. If your sales go up 23%, what happens to your labor problem? It goes away, right? It goes away. So here's where we run into trouble. So years and years and years ago, we had commodities, big piles of grain, right? So you'd go and you'd take your pickup truck and you'd pull up and you'd get some oats, and they'd load the back of the truck and you'd drive home and you'd be good for the winter. That's how things used to be sold. Then somebody figured out, hey, you know what? What if I take these big buckets of stuff and I put them in little baggies? I'll put them in 10-pound sacks, and people can buy them by 10 pounds, and I'll make more money So I'll sack them up in 10-pound sacks. I'll get a premium for the same product I'm loading into somebody's truck. My price is the same, maybe a little bit of labor, but I'm standing around, so what's it matter? So we load them into sacks, and all of a sudden we've got goods. And then we move on and say, somebody's like, okay, wait a second. What if I actually take it to their house? I can deliver it. I can get it to their house now. Now I can get an even higher premium. Not only that, they're not coming into my store. They don't use my restaurant. They don't flush the store. They don't cause any damage to the facility. They have no parties there. They're not using the toilet. Everything, my business model just got cheaper. I can do the work suddenly of a whole bunch of people with one person, just driving around delivering everything. Awesome. So this last piece is where we've hit this commoditization. So if I asked you your top 5 places that you like to shop, give me the top 5 places that you like to shop. Top 5 places you like to shop. Amazon. Number 1. I happen to be the same person that likes that. Amazon. Is Amazon a store? What do you like about Amazon? Their service is better than Nordstrom. I don't have anybody bugging me. And when I buy something, they ask me if I want to buy 2 other things that other people bought too. Right? These guys love this too. This is awesome. Hey, you bought a flashlight. Don't forget the batteries. Amazon figured out how to commoditize the service industry. They're better than we are. Everything in their industry is about serving the guests. So they took what was once high level, high value, we really love it, and they made it a commodity. Now I can pick up the phone and I can call to get my restaurant food. Restaurant food, right? Almost 3,000 independent pizzerias went out of business last year. You know why? Domino's. They're a huge part of it. So is Pizza Hut. So is every major player in the pizza industry. Because they figured out that people want to do what? Shop at home. They don't find a lot of value in going to the pizzeria like they used to. I just want my food. Just bring me my food. Bite Squad, Postmates, whatever it is, bring me my food. And that's going to continue to grow at a minimum of 9% a year. So eventually restaurants, again, we're up against it. What's the differentiation? The experience. So we have to move from just serving people into providing an experience. If we can't provide an experience, we're dead in the water. Now think about your serving staff. Do they create an experience for every guest that comes in? Or do they take orders? And when they take orders, when do they take orders instead of creating an experience? When they're really busy. So when they get really busy, they start taking orders and they stop creating experiences. When are the people there? When you're really busy. So it's the reverse of what we want. We don't want them taking orders. We want them creating experiences when you're really busy. So what happens? You either get faster at what you're doing and more competent, more unconsciously competent, or you add more servers. How many servers want to have another server on the floor? 0, that's right. They don't want another server on the floor. They want more bussers. I just need more help. The last time I checked, bussers don't bring a lot of sales. They just don't. Neither do expos or barbacks or dishwashers or a lot of the support model that we have in restaurants. We need revenue producers on the floor to create experiences. So the model's got to change at some point, because if I'm in Seattle and I've got to pay a busser $15 an hour, does that make me feel good? A busser, $15 an hour plus tips. Annualize it out, they're making like 40 grand. That's a good gig. So we're going to change that model as it goes forward. We're going to have less support staff, more servers. More servers because we want them to create the experiences. Same thing in the kitchen. You go into a restaurant, you're like, God, why can't I get food out of the kitchen? You ever have those nights? You're like, these guys suck. They're my people, but they suck. They can't get anything out of the kitchen because they're short-staffed. The really good operators have figured this out 30 years ago. We're just now catching up. So we've got to make sure that we move into that next spot. And that is a huge shift out of taking orders into creating experiences. So one way to manage your talent is this tool called the 9-box matrix. Everybody in here and all of your people fit on that grid somewhere. And we had an employee recently. The thing I like about this is data driven. This is just data. So I sat the guy down, I said, hey, you know what? If I were to ask you, just name your price. If you said, how much potential, how much leadership potential do you have? 1 to 3. 1 being the best. What do you think the guy said? I'm a 1. I said, that's great. Okay, so let's say you've got the highest leadership potential you could possibly have. Now rate your performance. How are you performing? You know what he said? C. I'm a 1C. I got a lot of potential, but I'm not performing at the level I need to be performing. You know why? Because he wasn't engaged. Non-engaged people cannot perform at a 1A level. But you have to realize when you, as a leader, enter your business, you have to be at 1A. You have to be on it. You have to be the best that you've ever been. Your people expect that. So outstanding performance with high potential for great leadership. This is developed by McKinsey for, I think, GE like 20, 30 years ago. It's a very old tool, very useful though, because it creates data, and data kills drama. Have you noticed that there's any drama in your restaurant? That's why we love it, right? We love the restaurant business because it's full of drama. There's a proverb that says that gossip, which I equate with drama, is like choice morsels going down to the very soul of the man. We love it. We love drama. And when we get bored, we go creative. So our job is to make sure people don't go bored so they don't go creative. Because when they create drama, what happens? We take the eye off the ball. Productivity goes down and the restaurant goes backwards instead of forward. So we want to move through this progression, back to this whole thing of moving people along. I would love you to take all of your people, evaluate them on that 9 grid. And again, if you give me your card, I'll send it to you, and I won't send you a bunch of other material to go along with it, by the way, just the PDF that goes along with it. So rate all of your people on this, where you think they belong, and then rate them on where you think they're in their career progression. Do they know what they're doing? Can they do it? Can they teach it? And are they a master? Because mastery is proficiency, and when you're super proficient on something, you can not only teach, but you make complex behavior very simple to understand. Does that make sense? So masters take what's really complicated. You ever sat with a great tax person? I could just sit with one all the time. But they can take what's really complicated and make it very simple. You're like, oh, that's it? I mean, really? That's all there is to it? Yeah, that's all there is to it. Because they can take what's this massive, complex issue and distill it down into one little tiny thing and make it easy for you to understand. So moving people through this, and the great thing is it gets to reset. You get to reset all of this. So know, do, teach, master. It's a great little tool. Know, do, teach, master. You want to create masters, and then you want to push them beyond what they think they're capable of. So we want to get to the point of having precision on the right things, precision on the guest experience. So I worked with a guy that took his restaurant over 3 years, more than doubled his revenue in over 3 years. So I said, hey, you know, this was a humongous restaurant to begin with. Huge restaurant, much busier than any of yours, I'm sure. Bigger than most of your companies, I'm sure. So this restaurant, very, very big, brings in a CEO. 3 years later, sales have more than doubled. I said, how did you do that? He said, it was very simple. I just focused everybody on the guest experience. That's all I did. That's all I talked about. Back to creating experiences. How do I create the experience for people? I want to create great guest experiences. Out of that, people do what? They get engaged and they spend more. There's 23%, same guest base. I didn't add a single guest. But what happens is when you get really good, they start sharing. We'll go over that in a minute. But the guest experience is top priority. Employee satisfaction, so precision. Working with great people. Great people like to work with great people, right? You want to know the fastest way to lose a star is to hang on to a fool. Hang on to somebody that doesn't perform well, and you will see your star walk right out the door. They don't like to work with fools. They don't think you're smart, and stars like to work with smart people. So employee satisfaction, sparkling facilities. Walk through your facilities and make sure they are in opening day fresh condition. That's a Disney term. Opening day fresh. Like you opened that restaurant the first day. Does it still smell like it? Probably not. Does it still look like it? Probably not. Does it feel fresh and clean? If it doesn't, get it back to that point. Sparkling, clean facilities with a great guest experience, a great employee satisfaction. Make sure everybody's doing important work. So how do you get somebody to do important work? You make it personal to them. So when something is personal to somebody, they'll do it, right? If it's important to them, they will do it. It's very easy to get them to do it. But if you dump urgent stuff onto people, what do they say? This is your problem. I'll get to it when I get to it. So number 4, speed. Watch and measure performance. So it's all about speed. Everything that is done in the restaurant is about speed. Speed builds repeat visits because people can count on you. Speed builds the check average. Why? Because now I'm so fast at doing the unconscious parts of my job, like ringing an order, taking an order, getting to the bar, getting back, all that kind of stuff. I have more time to actually develop an experience for you. That builds the check average because I can offer the entire thing. And a lot of people kind of push against, I bet, David, you get the same pushback when you say, let's talk about upselling. People hate that term. But if you go to dinner at somebody's house, what do? You walk in, what are they doing? Hey, can I get you something to drink? Not us. God forbid we're going to actually offer that on the way to the table. We're going to wait until they sit down and they're good and toasty and they got their menus open. But get your butt over there and get an order for a drink and then get it back to the table right away. There is a time budget in everybody's life. Mine for lunch, likely yours is 45 minutes. Mine for dinner, I got 3 little kids, even though I'm this old. 3 little kids, I've got 70 minutes max, or you're going to be in trouble. So you better get me in and get me out. So I've got 70 minutes to eat. I venture to guess most people do as well. So when you think about this, somebody walks in, they stand at the front desk, they wait around a little bit, then they get seated. How much time's gone? 2 minutes. Then we have this wonderful, wonderful standard in our restaurants. If we're really good, you got to make sure that you get to that table within 3 minutes. Well, folks, now I'm 5 minutes in. 5 minutes in, you just greeted me. Then you got to give me your spiel. Then what? You take my drink order. Then you disappear. You place the order. You go to the bar. You get it. You come back. Then what? There's another 5 minutes. I'm 10 minutes in. All I have is a Coke. I have nothing but a Coke in front of me. 10 minutes in. I've only got 45. 35 is burning. Here we go. Now, the average consumer spends 110 seconds with their menu. What do they do with it? They scan it. They scan their menus. Like David showed the eye pattern. They scan their menu in that pattern. And then what do they say? Server comes up, hey, you ready to order? What do they say? Hey, can you give us a couple minutes? You ever done that? Why? Because now I got to activate my brain, use my 110 seconds up. And then you come back, not 2 minutes later, but 5 minutes later, because I want you to be good and ready. Because you're going to waste my time. So now how long have I been there? 15 minutes, and I have nothing in front of me but a Coke. In 15 minutes in my restaurant, you better be on your second drink. Because I've only got you for a short period of time. If I'm not in gear, if I'm not kicking butt, if I'm not smoking it, I'm having a lot of trouble at that point. 15 minutes in, I've got a Coke. How much have I spent? $2.95. 15 minutes of restaurant time that's burning well beyond that. So now I get your order, then what do? I went to a restaurant, a chef-owned restaurant. I went to 5 of his restaurants in the same month, and I went back to him and I said, hey John, hey, guess what? You got timing issues in all of your restaurants. You know what he said? Typical chef answer, sorry Russell. It's the servers. They just don't enter the order in. He said, I sat there and watched it and I thought, I better start paying attention to this. Sure enough, people take the order and they don't beat it over to the POS system and enter it in. Kitchen waits. Now I'm up to 20 minutes. I got nothing in front of me but a Coke. I just got a Coke. I spent $2.95. Then it's time for the kitchen to perform. When the kitchen performs, then what? If we have really good standards, we have a 12-minute ticket time, right? So now if I hit my standards, no matter what, I'm 32 minutes in. I got 45 minutes for lunch. I got 13 minutes to eat my food. If they hit their 12 minutes, which they don't most of the time. And I would highly encourage you to put a piece of QSR software or something like that that tracks ticket times. If you got different POS systems have different systems, and the big guys, they know how important it is to kick that stuff out, right? Speed is everything. Speed's everything, because speed builds my reputation for reliability. If I am 32 to 35 minutes into an experience before I've gotten any food, am I going back? The food better be really good. I'll go back. The average consumer goes to lunch twice a week. Why? They're out of time. Because we took all their time. Twice a week in a restaurant. We took all their time. So I'm 35 minutes in. I get to eat for 5 minutes. I get my ticket. Then what? God help me. I've got to wait for the server to pick up my tab and ring it in. That's a problem too. So all of a sudden I'm 7 minutes in. Now I'm 47 minutes. I've done nothing but choke one dish down, and I've had time to have 1 Coke. So I spent $15 and I could have spent $30. Because when you go to dinner at somebody's house, they start with the drink. They have appetizers. They have salad. They have dinner. And after dinner, what? Oh, we're not done. You're not coming to a dinner party at our house and not getting offered dessert, right? So we offer you dessert, and then we offer you what? During the whole time, we've made you a drink. We're throwing wine down your throat. Best wine you've ever had. We've gone through 3 bottles. It's only 4 of us. 3 bottles, a full bottle of booze. We're at the end of the meal. Then what do we say? Would you like some coffee? Yeah, I'd take some coffee. I need to wait. Great. You want a little something in it? I mean, it's that simple. We do that, right? But we don't expect that out of the restaurants. We don't expect that same thing of that customized experience, so people want to come back. I want my friends to come back. Please come back. Tom, please come back. Come back to dinner. We want you to come back. So we create this wonderful experience for you, and we kowtow you through the whole thing. That's the level of service that spreads and builds reputation. When I'm in control, when you give me control of my own experience, I'm in a good spot, because I can count on you. And then what do? I repeat it to my friends. Do you know how much traditional advertising is trusted? 13%. Do you know how much word of mouth is trusted? Over 90%. I want you talking about me. 10 conversations around food, around the water cooler every week in business. I want to be in the conversation, because sales kills. Speed kills. We don't have cost problems when we have sales, right? Very rarely do we have those problems. We just got to figure out what to do with all the money. All right, so we have to make sure that we have the right measurements. So KPIs by department, KPIs by individual, performance meetings focused on coaching and development. So what are some sample KPIs? Timed prep lists. How many of those do you have? And do you actually time those out? People are like, yeah, I time them out. Like, great. Do you add up all the time? You actually tracking the time? No. So we have time prep lists, but we just don't hold people accountable to the time to do it, because guess what? They're going to get it done. And by the way, we'll write the time prep list to do 8 hours worth of work, and we'll expect them to work 8 hours. We won't write the time prep list and give them 10 hours worth of work to do and expect them to get it done in 8 hours, because they will. You ever seen a dishwasher come in for work and they think that they're behind? They walk into this humongous pile of dishes. What do? You've never seen anybody move so fast in your entire life. They whip that thing out, man. They're focused. Boom, 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 boom. Then what happens? the rush is over for them, then they go out and smoke or whatever. So that being in the flow, getting them in the flow and by position, that's our job as leaders. Provided our restaurateurs were honest on their DOR returns, which we have to assume they were, or at least they're consistent. So in that, they realize for every 1-star move, every 1 star is between 5 and 9% up or down. So wherever you're at, try to get another half a star to a full star, and you'll move your sales 5 to 9%. Why? Because people believe it, whether you like it or not. And here's what you want to see on your Yelp. Lots of 4s, 5s, lots of 1s. Well, not a lot of 1s. You don't want 2s and 3s. Why is that? When's the last time you went to a restaurant, you walk up and you're like, hey, I'm going to go to this new restaurant, what do you think? Somebody's like, it's fine. Well, that gets me, I'm fired up about that's fine. Okay, well, I'm not going there, right? So what happens if you walk up to somebody and you say, I'm going to go to this restaurant, and they're like, man, it is great. You're like, perfect, you just validated my choice, can't wait to go. And then you walk up to another person, you're like, hey, I'm going to go to this restaurant, and they say, oh man, it sucked. It sucked big time. What happens? We say, well, that's not what I heard. That doesn't make any sense. Then you start arguing about it. I'm going anyway. Love me or hate me, don't like me. Love me or hate me, don't like me. If you got lots of people that like you, you're going to go out of business. You want people that love you or hate you, but not like me. Love me, hate me. All right. So you are in charge, and you get to make the changes that you want. So you can either have your PhD or you can have your RSE. So you can either have pig-headed determination or you can have reasons, stories, and excuses. Choice is completely up to you. But if you focus on getting your PhD and requiring more of your people than they've ever had before, you're going to make sure that they have great knowledge, that they're unconsciously competent, that they have great focus, that they're in the flow every day, that they're precise on what they do, and they're fast as snot. Just as fast as can be. You're going to have better labor costs, a more productive staff, which is going to lead you to higher sales and productivity. Questions? No questions? Yes? Hey, Kevin. Responding to Yelp.
How do you use negative reviews ultimately to your advantage?
So one of the... That's not the spot. Well, that's going to teach me to get off of my porch. So that's an excellent question, Kevin, is what do you do when you have a negative Yelp? Fire back at them? The best thing you can do is try to understand their problem, because they cared enough. They cared enough to write something out, which we heard earlier, only 2% of the people do. And 80% of the content comes from those 2%, and they're very vocal. So I make sure that every single 5 or 1 gets a response. Make sure you respond to those. You should respond as much as you can to all the Yelps. Again, back to what do we expect out of our people? They should respond to every negative Yelp, because sometimes they turn around. And even if you have a conversation with them, they appreciate it, unless they're just a jerk and they're trying to get something for free, which we know that happens. And in my world, big deal. So you gave them a couple of bucks. They came back. Does that answer your question? Great. I'm not walking down there anymore. Carrie? Yeah, so the question is, how do you get the managers on board with adding more servers? Because who are the managers listening to? They're listening to the serving staff, right? Because the last thing they want is any problems on the serving staff. So how to get managers, you just basically have to, you have to get them to experiment, which is what I've done. Like, you just take a really busy Saturday night and you plug another server in. And the ironic thing is their sales per server stay the same because their tickets go up. Their ticket averages go up. And back to this whole thing of actually smoothing out the kitchen, that was the shocking point to me by adding more servers, that the kitchen got better. It was a smoother night because they weren't getting crammed all the time. But I don't think you ask. I think you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I've asked it several times, we're going to try this, and if you don't like it, let's measure the results and let's talk about it, let's have a conversation, but I want to try this because I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Diane was just going to say, just tell them that you're going to do it, right? You're going to do it. All right, so I think we are out of time. So thanks for your time. Remember to give me your business card if you want me to send you the PDFs.
Turn this off.